Question. How do we stop that from happening? How do we all get along? How do we mend these relationships which seem imperative to mend?
Well, I think that's a critical question and one that a lot of people are trying to think hard about. I mean, I think it's not politically fashionable these days, I would say. Certainly not in the United States, certainly not in China, not even in Australia, I would say. Not politically fashionable to be thinking on those terms. And I would say for the sake of your generation, we should want it to get back into fashion again. How? I think we need to work a lot harder at developing legitimate and justifiable coalitions within our domestic societies, and I include China in this, that can make the case for moderation and some forms of accommodation vis-a-vis one another. Those coalitions have been shuttered largely, even though they were quite powerful not that long ago. So how do you rebuild that? That's a very different matter, but obviously that has to start. That has to be the start. You have to have some political impetus that gathers strength within these different countries, China and the United States in particular, that can build out that coalition and consensus for some form of accommodation and cooperation to reverse the trend that we're on. That has to be step one. Maybe that can arise from a crisis, that takes us to the brink of something very dangerous. Maybe we could hope that would shake some people's minds and give some credence then to those coalitions that are looking for moderation in the relationship. Some of the old tried and true methods that this moderation arose from, like economic cooperation, I'm afraid, those are going to be really difficult to have that as the basis going forward. Maybe if the challenge of global climate change continues to take us in the direction of crisis that it is now, maybe that would be the sort of area of impetus where coalitions could be built out to make the case that this is the real threat, this is the real existential crisis we all face, and we're not going to get out of this without working together in some way, and maybe set some of the areas of tension somewhat to the side. That might be a last way. And then maybe most optimistically of all, in my view, is maybe there'll be a change in China. Maybe. I don't put the likelihood of this very high, but I think there are still in China individuals and factions even that don't like where this is all going. They don't see China winning on its current pathway. You don't hear much from them, and they're largely silenced or cowed from being able to make their voices heard. But I think there are people like that, and that doesn't mean that that it's not the Communist Party anymore, but it could mean that a different type of leadership maybe would be prepared to seek some moderation and accommodation. Again, I'm doubtful, but that might be another way to get there.